Senator Luján.
Thank you so much, Chairman. I very much appreciate your leadership and this important hearing that we're having today. I also want to recognize Ranking Member Blackburn for calling this hearing to explore actions we can take to stop COVID-19 related scams. It's critical to understand how we best protect our communities in times of crisis, and I look forward to working together on this topic. Even as the FTC tackles this unprecedented crisis of fraud and abuse against all Americans, we still don't understand the full scale of this crisis. That's why, as a House member, I introduced the Bipartisan Protecting Indian Tribes from Scams Act to better understand the scope of scams targeting tribes and tribal members, and to create a roadmap for Congress to put an end to these schemes. The House passed this bill last year, but we still have more work to do. Mr. Kaufman, can I get a commitment from you to work with me on this issue?
Absolutely. We'd be very happy to do so.
And last year, I introduced the Stopping COVID Scams Act so the FTC could go after scammers quickly and decisively. And I'm glad that parts of that bill were incorporated into the Consolidated Appropriations Act in December. Critically, the FTC now has civil penalty authority. And I was glad to see that the Commission brought its first action seeking monetary penalties under its new authority targeting deceptive COVID-19 marketing of vitamin D and zinc products. We can't just give scammers a slap on the wrist, especially when people's lives and livelihoods are on the line. Mr. Kaufman, should Congress expand the FTC's present civil penalty authority to make it permanent and increase its scope beyond the COVID-19 health crisis?
So I do think there are areas where the FTC could definitely use civil penalty authority. Data security and privacy first-time violations are an area where I do think civil penalty authority is appropriate. I'd be glad to discuss with your office other areas where it might be suitable for the FTC to have civil penalty authority against first-time violators.
Appreciate that. Mr. Kaufman, as we recently explored in the hearing in the Communications Subcommittee, misleading and contradictory information about the coronavirus on social media platforms and broadcast media has done real harm. Fake claims have gotten in the way of public health professionals trying to do their job and protect our communities. That is why last week, Senator Klobuchar and I requested information from Jack Dorsey and Mark Zuckerberg about why they have failed to take action against a small group of 12 accounts responsible for up to 65% of anti-vaccine content on their platforms. Many of these accounts turn their lives into profit by selling supplements, books, and other miracle cures. This needs to stop. So my question actually is to Ms. Patton. Do you have any recommendations on steps Congress can take to ensure online platforms address misinformation, super spreaders?
Well, I think the very first thing Congress needs to do is fix 13B. After that, I think that broad civil penalty authority to the FTC would go a long way in deterring these platforms and social media companies to do the right thing. And I think that a civil penalty fund that could reimburse victims of these frauds that you're talking about would also be appropriate.
Mr. Kaufman, do you have a response to that?
Yeah, I definitely agree strongly on the civil penalty fund. It's a tool that other agencies have where civil penalties can go to the agency to disperse money to consumers that were harmed. So I think that would be, and again, I'm speaking for myself and not for the commission, but I do know the acting chair is very interested in that as well. But a civil penalty fund would be a highly effective tool for the agency and for consumers.
In New Mexico, we started seeing COVID-19 scams as early as last March. They tried to scare seniors that they would lose their Social Security payments, and it wasn't true. They tried to sell miracle cures. They were lies. Especially in rural communities, many of these scammers reach their targets not over the internet, but on the telephone. Robocalls aren't just a nuisance. They are used to take advantage of elderly and vulnerable populations when they're most at risk. I'm encouraged that the FTC is taking action against companies that enable those calls, including voice over internet protocol providers. However, it looks like the number of illegal calls are on the rise once again. Mr. Kaufman, what additional tools does the FTC need to fight illegal robocalls?
A lot of the challenges in fighting robocalls are technological, and we are coordinating closely with the FCC, and we do have a lot of cases in the pipeline on robocall issues. But on the other issues you raise, I think education is a very important part of the FTC's mission, and it's important that we not just put information on our website, but that we're reaching out to consumers, to different communities, to share the information about hang up the phone when you get a robocall. So one thing we've done is we've mailed postcards to hundreds of thousands of consumers who are in neighborhoods which have low internet access. So we've appeared on a lot of radio shows in order to get the message out to consumers that might not go to our website to find the information.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Thanks a lot, Senator Luján. A couple of final questions. I appreciated the acting chair's announcement about the Consumer Community Advocate Center. I hope you're familiar with it. And we all recognize that fraud actually exploits the most vulnerable and hard to reach communities. I'm hoping that the FTC can partner with leaders in local communities, faith leaders, senior citizens leaders, and advocates. What is the plan for getting the center started, the Community Advocate Center?
So the Community Advocate Center, we announced it about a month ago. It's a way for legal service organizations to file complaints with the FTC on behalf of their clients and get advice back about what their clients should do. We kicked it off a month ago. We've already signed up 30 different organizations, and we have support from a lot of national organizations as well. So it is just starting up, and we think it has a lot of promise to get us information about frauds that are targeting low-income communities who may be less likely to report to the FTC or to other law enforcement agencies.
Thank you. And finally, the funeral rule. The Commission requested last summer comments on changes to the funeral rule. Does the Commission intend to make changes to that rule?
I can say that the rule review is still underway, and we are looking closely at the comments, and more will be coming in the future.
Thank you. I want to just close by thanking all of the witnesses for this excellent testimony. It's been a great start to our subcommittee's series of hearings. I hope we will explore more of the COVID scams that we're seeing multiplying and exploding literally every day. I think education, Ms. Patton, is a very important component here, but as you've described so eloquently, there are enforcement actions that need to be taken as a deterrent, as a source of restitution, and as a punishment. And I'm hoping that the FTC will play an increasingly vigorous role with additional resources that are absolutely necessary. And as to the tech platforms, we need to make them accountable for enabling these kinds of scams. And thoughtful revision to Section 230 is key to that effort. Thank you to Ms. Alexander, Mr. Rhodes, Professor Kovacic, and to Mr. Kaufman and Ms. Patton. Really appreciate you being here, and thanks to my colleagues, especially Senator Blackburn. We will remain open. The hearing record will remain open for 2 weeks. Any senators who'd like to submit questions for the record should do so by May 4th. We ask that your responses be returned to the committee as quickly as possible, and in no case later than 2 weeks after you receive these questions. That concludes today's hearing. Thank you all.
Thank you.